Alright boys and girls, this is Benjamin Bok Choi bringing you another F123 ranked online video, and today we have two pretty bad races for you. I didn't do any practice at all, and the races this week are Imola, Texas, and Miami. And Imola and Miami are probably two of my not so confident tracks. I'm not good at them, I'm not terrible at them, but I don't really have much confidence in either track, and Texas is probably the only track on this week's list that I actually have any confidence in. So we are at Imola in the first race, and as you can see, we're actually not doing too bad here, but the big issue is that I didn't really prepare going into this race at all. Not too much practice, kind of just jumped in, and I was like, let's see how I can do without too much practice. Obviously, I ran 1 or 2 time trial laps just to make sure that the my race setup was okay. The race setup is a little bit different from the time trial setups. I think the tires are a lot less, or the tire pressures are a lot less on the race setup, because I think the time trial setup have the pressures at full. All 4 tires are max PSI. And I think the wings I lowered from 30 to 29 to 28, 25, I believe it is. So lower wings and much lower tire pressures. And we still do well enough to finish P2 there. But I noticed something the last couple of weeks that I generally try to change before the race starts, and that is brake bias. So the brake biases that I use in offline races are a little bit lower than the online races, so usually I move them up 1 or 2 clicks because I always tend to lock up. But because I didn't really do much preparation and I didn't do much practice, I forgot about it, and going into the race we have a bit of an issue. So starting P2, not too bad, starting on the mediums. I'm not sure how we still qualified P2 at this track. But yeah, not a terrible start there, but we are on the mediums. We see guys behind us with better starts using a bunch of battery. Going into turn 1 here, pole sitter goes in a bit narrow and then kind of washes out in front of us, so we kind of get compromised there, and now we are just slow. P4 is side by side with us, and try to hang it around the outside, but as you can see, the front brake bias is at 53, so it should be at 54. 53 is the offline brake bias, and as you know, the equal F1 cars and the multiplayer cars react a little bit different to setups. So we get back on track, P11 now, and we are kind of slow. The cars ahead of us are battling, and they are they're just kind of falling back in front of us. So again, going into Aqua Minerale, we get compromised there again because the car in front of us didn't take the corner properly. We have another car side by side. I have to back out because I don't want to take any damage. We get hit from behind, from the car behind, who just apparently didn't see that there was a car up our inside. So once again, we lose momentum. And then going into the last few corners here, we try to use the car in front of us to block the driver behind, but the driver behind just drives into us anyway and takes the position. So we are just falling back. And at this point, I was looking at the mini-map, Red Rizla. I know you ran into me, but trust me, I did not do this on purpose. I was trying to take a look at the leaders in the mini-map, and by the time I looked up, it was just too late for the corner, and I was like, oh crap. And I went into the back of you. I didn't do that on purpose. I just wasn't paying attention. The hit that you gave on us did not come close to warranting a retaliation like that. I just was looking at the minimap to see where the leaders were, and we went into the back of him and damaged our front wing. So just a terrible race for us overall. We started P2 and just did not do our preparation, did not pay attention during the race. We came into this race kind of cold, and I just had a terrible race. It started raining on later on in the race. We were up in P12, but we made a mistake because, as you can see, we changed onto the softs, and we are at like 65% tire wear, I believe. So everybody is just passing us. Now that it's raining, we have even less grip on track, and we made a mistake quite late in the race. So we were as high as like P9, but then everybody behind us were on fresh new softs, and as you can see, okay, not 65, 55, and 62 in the rears. So not really great tire life left on the car in this kind of weather, and we just started falling back. So yeah, guys, do your preparation. Make sure that you're doing a little bit of practice runs before you jump in, because I haven't played this game in maybe I don't remember the last time I uploaded a video, maybe 3 days ago, 4 days ago, and those were races that I had done the night before. Yeah, it's been quite a few days, and I just jumped on like an idiot and was like, oh, let's see how we do in ranked races. And we did terrible. This was the first race of the day, and we did absolutely terrible, only managing to beat one guy and a few guys at DNF. So started P2, ended P14, not a great race at all. And that was totally all on us, just mistakes left and right. So we had another race at Miami, but it started with like 7 or 8 people in the lobby before we went into quali, and then by the time quali ended, there was only like 3 guys left on track. So I just exited out of that race as well. Didn't even bother trying. I'm not going to do a race with 3 people on track, not unless it's like super late at night and I know there's nobody else to race. So we exited out on that. Don't have any video, and we will jump to our next race at Miami. So if you were hoping for a good race to balance out that bad race, you're going to be disappointed. This is going to be a video on lessons that I learned after these races today. So we are at Miami in the wet. We are on the inters. I don't have a designated inter setup because I just don't play this game too much anymore. At least not as much as I did F1 22 anyway. Or at the end of the life cycle of F1 22, I didn't play this game quite as much as F1 22. So we just don't have enough time to really go in and create a dedicated inter setup. But still set a purple sector in Sector 1 on our quality lap. And I believe this is just a time trial setup with the wings up 1 or 2 clicks because it was supposed to be raining in the race as well. But the mistake that I made here, once again, not doing my preparation, instead of editing my dry race setup and just changing the wings, I just loaded up the time trial setup, which I don't have the tire pressures corrected for. So the tire pressures are much, much lower on this setup that we are on right now because it's just a time trial setup. And the race setup has higher tire pressures because the tire temps don't get to an optimum temperature on the time trial setup, so you have to raise the tire pressures a little bit. So I made that mistake. Instead of changing the dry race setup for the inters race, I went in and loaded the time trial setup, so our tire pressures are way off whack, and I totally or out of whack, and I didn't even notice it until really late into the race. So we managed to still qualify P3 there, and I think that's just because most people don't really do much practice on in inters weather, and so we kind of got lucky here and still managed to qualify P3, even though I don't think we were all that fast, only 4/10 off the leader there. So not too bad of quali, and the driver behind us is about 3/10 behind. So the race is going to start off dry. We are on the softs. Pole sitter is on hards, and P2 is on the softs as well. So the launch isn't too bad, but we kind of get boxed in here. Pole sitter and P2 are going a little bit slow, so we have to go kind of deep in. That puts us offline a little bit. We get on the curbs there, can't get enough traction. We have to let this guy on our inside go by because we just don't have the momentum. So we drop down to P4 almost right away, and the drivers behind are actually staying close behind as well. But as you can see, the guys in front are actually starting to battle pretty hard here, and we have guys going off track, and they are about to fight through the rest of this lap. And once again, when I see this, I'm hoping that 1 or 2 of them take each other out, and we can get some free positions, which would help us out. So grid is still pretty close here, only a couple tenths to the guys behind and only a few tenths to the guys in front. And we also have different tires, one guy on softs in front, one on the mediums, and one on the hards. So I was hoping that there would be some contact here and some guys would go off. And as we come into the end of Sector 2 here, we actually get our wish. So one guy goes off, and we manage to take the position and continue on in P3. The 2 guys behind us kind of go wheel to wheel and smash into each other, kind of slowing down their momentum as well. But it looks like they're spamming their overtake because they are closing up pretty quickly So another early mistake here, not realizing that the guy ahead is on hards. He's going to have to stop a lot earlier, and of course we go into the back of him. He is that's all on us right there. It's on us as the driver behind to not hit him, and just issues piling upon issues today because I just was not paying attention, didn't realize he was on the hards and that he'd have to brake a lot earlier than normal. So we get jumped by 2 more guys, so we're down to P5 right now. But the driver ahead of us, Snowriders 42, is really slow. He used all of his battery to get in front of us. We are at 70% right now. He is flashing and just not really taking the best line, so he goes out wide right here. We get DRS. He gets DRS as well, I believe, but he has no battery, so we're going to be quicker. And we pass him at a really odd spot on track there, just as the track kind of curves, and we almost go into the wall. Really bad position to be overtaking him, but we make it by him anyway, and then move ourselves up to P4 behind Charlie RH9. I think this is the guy that started P2, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it's him. So now we're just trying to drop the driver behind, as he looked like he was a little bit slow when we were behind him. And then once we do drop him, we will focus on Charlie ahead. And we still have a decent amount of battery. And I was hoping that he would work together with us to try and catch up to the leaders, but I don't know if he's just got low wings or if he's using his battery to defend, but we're not really catching up to him. It could be a setup issue because we had higher wings due to the rain. So he comes in pretty early here. The skies are starting to get dark already, so I was a little bit confused why he came in so early. We were going to try to take these softs all the way to the rain, and we've been unleashed now up to P3. The leaders are only 4.5 seconds, 5 seconds ahead of us, so I was hoping that we could catch up to him. And as you can see right now, I'm starting to focus on the weather report and listening to what's going on. Dries are still the fastest tire. I'm calculating in my head, and as I do, oh man, I make another mistake. A lot of uncharacteristic mistakes today from me because I just was not paying attention. It also doesn't help that I had an earbud in one ear watching The Big Bang Theory on HBO Max. Not a great thing to do. Yeah, not an excuse. I do that quite often, but I wasn't really paying attention to the race today. It allows Dusan Madola behind us to catch up. He was over a second behind, but now he is within DRS, and nothing we can do about it now because we only have 20% battery. No point in fighting. The couple cars had pitted on the last lap, so I don't want to lose any time to those guys as well. As you can see, Dash Riprock is only 12 seconds back, so I'm not going to fight this at all. Just stay to the right. He's going to turn on the DRS and probably use overtake to get by us. He's starting to flash as well, so now I'm hoping that we might be able to just stick close to him. Our tires are starting to go off at this point, and hopefully he can drag us a little bit later into the race and help us get these tires to the wet weather. So pit window is open, but I'm not looking to pit. Like I said, we're going to try to go as late as possible into the race and see if we can go onto the inters, whether Dash Riprock 12 seconds behind, Charlie RH9, who was in front of us on the previous lap and pitted, is 16 seconds behind. The pit lane not really super long here at Miami, so you don't lose too much time in the pit lane, and I didn't want to have to pit onto another dry compound and then eventually maybe pit onto the inters later on in the race. So I really just want to do one pit stop today, and as you can see there, our tire temps are not that great. So instead of altering the dry race setup with the correct tire pressures, I started the race on the time trial setups with the wrong tire pressures, and by the time we get down to the hairpin there, our fronts are like at 91, 92, and our rear tires were at like 93 degrees, so just way too cold to really maximize the grip. And then as I'm trying to figure out what I can do to get those tire temps up, we bang into the wall and damage our front wing. Now again, because the skies were so dark and I was hoping that the rain would show up soon, I just stayed out on the track. As you can see now, lap 8, it is starting to come down a little bit, but not really hard enough to justify going onto the inters, and I was trying to wait until the gap behind us was really close and then come in. So on the next lap at the end of lap number 9, we only have 3 seconds to the drivers behind. I don't want to slow them up and screw with their race, and I don't want to lose any more time battling them, so we decided to come in to change onto the inters and change out our front wing, even though it's still way too early to go on to the inters. The engineer was saying that the rain was going to get heavier as the race progressed. There was only 4 laps left. We had to make a pit stop anyway, and I was hoping that the rain would get really heavy from this point on, but it doesn't look that way right now. It's been raining for 2 laps or so, and it hasn't gotten really much heavier. And again, we only get a good turn in instead of a great turn in. So I don't know where my mind was at today. Just screwed up terribly on the first race, and even though we didn't screw up quite as bad in this race, still very poor racing from me today. Just seemed like my mind wasn't in it, wasn't paying attention, didn't prepare enough, didn't get the right setups in, didn't have the right brake balance in, and we just did not do ourselves any favors. So we did manage to claw back a little bit of time as the rain got heavier on lap 13, but by this point there was only like a lap and a half left to go. There's still guys on the dry compounds, and even though we are gaining time on them, we aren't gaining enough time to make up 8.5 seconds on this next lap. As you can see, we did close in on Charlie RH9 in front of us as well. He was over 4.5 seconds in front of us earlier on in the race, and at this point now we are under 3 seconds to him. So I was thinking that we might be able to make up one more position here if we just drove well enough, but we have been on the inters much longer than everybody else at this point, so we are on the oldest set of inters. Coming into this section here, he has a scruffy couple left-hand turns there, and the gap is now down to 1.5 seconds. So we are closing in, but again, only about half a lap left to go now. No DRS, I think DRS still hadn't been disabled at this point, as the dry tires are still putting in pretty decent lap times, and we haven't even eaten much into Eric's gap in P5 there. So I believe DRS was still enabled. We had a chance here, but Charlie did just enough to stay outside of DRS, and he managed to keep the position. So yeah, there you go, boys and girls. Not a really good day for us. 2 scruffy races. Just did not pay enough attention before the race, didn't pay attention during the race, and we had a bad race at Imola, falling way down the grid to pretty much dead last. I think we were like P16, I believe it was. And then at this race we started P3, and we dropped all the way down to P7 just because we didn't prepare for the race properly. So lessons learned there, boys and girls. And by the way, corner cutting still as bad as it was before Cody's claim. They changed it to strict corner cutting. I'll show you the warnings that we got for the race at Imola. And so you can see here just plenty of people with plenty of track limit warnings and just no penalties. So I don't know what Cody's means when they say that they changed it to strict. I mean, I know that people are getting disqualified in qualifying when they're track extending, but in the race, look at all these. There's plenty of people with multiple warnings. We had 2 ourselves, and I was thinking I didn't want to get a 3rd one just in case we do get a time penalty. But after the race, I checked the incident report, and there was just so many warnings. So not really sure what's going on there. But that's it for us today, guys. We learned our lesson. Hopefully we can learn from these mistakes on our next races. I'm going to do some more races this week to try and at the very least maintain the Gold 1 division and possibly even get promoted to Gold 2. Hopefully it'll be better than this today's races. But if you think I've earned it, feel free to leave me a like, comment, or subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Remember to eat a bok choy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.